Let's take a journey back to the 18th century, when the map of the world was being redrawn by war, ambition, and rebellion. It was a time when North America was a growing patchwork of British colonies, nestled on a vast and untamed expanse. But how did these colonies go from loyal subjects under the British crown to sparking the flames of revolution? The story truly begins with the Seven Years' War, sometimes called the very first global conflict. There, it was called the French and Indian War, as British colonial troops stood side by side with redcoats, fighting against French forces and their Native American allies. For the colonies, this war felt existential. French forts threatened the frontiers of Pennsylvania, New York, and Virginia. Maintaining Britain's control of the American territories seemed vital to colonial survival. The war ended in victory. Britain secured vast swaths of North America, including Canada. But victories come with costs, and the Seven Years' War had been phenomenally expensive. The British crown was left with an enormous debt. And here's where the seeds of resentment were sown. The British government looked to its colonies for financial relief, reasoning that since the war had been fought in their interest, it was only fair for them to shoulder part of the burden. Taxes were introduced: the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, and other measures aimed at raising revenue. But to the colonists, this wasn't just an economic strain, it was an insult. You see, the colonies had no representation in the British Parliament, and as they saw it, taxation without representation wasn't governance, it was tyranny. The once strong relationship between Britain and its colonies began to fray. The war had united them briefly, but the post-war policies created a clear divide. The British saw the colonies as subjects who owed allegiance and resources. The colonists, on the other hand, began to see themselves not as subjects of Britain, but as Americans. Tensions escalated. Protests erupted, boycotts spread, and acts of defiance, the Boston Tea Party, for instance, became symbolic of a growing desire for independence. What started as grievances over tax policy snowballed into a movement for liberty, fueled by Enlightenment ideals and a fierce belief in self-determination. By 1775, the powder keg exploded. The revolution began, not just as a rebellion, but as a radical reimagining of governance, freedom, and national identity. The spark had been lit years earlier in those bitter debates over taxes and debt, and now the flames consumed the colonies, birthing what would become the United States of America. No dialogue for this section, as the visuals capture the sentiment.